Welcome to the Expensive Coins History channel. Picture this: you're sorting through loose change after a trip to the grocery store, tossing quarters and dimes into a jar without a second thought. But what if I told you that among those ordinary coins could be a piece of American history worth more than your car, more than a down payment on a house, potentially worth enough to change your financial future forever? Today, we're diving deep into two extraordinary coins that most people handle every single day without realizing they're holding potential fortunes in their hands. Let me start with a story that might sound familiar. A man in Ohio was cleaning out his late father's belongings when he discovered several old coffee cans filled with coins in the garage. Most were common pocket change, but nestled among them was a 1988 P. Washington quarter that would eventually be valued at $91,000. That's not a typo. $91,000 for a quarter. The same coin you might use to buy gum or feed a parking meter could be worth more than most people earn in 2 years. The 1988 P. Washington quarter represents something fascinating in the world of numismatics. On the surface, it appears completely ordinary. George Washington's stoic profile faces left on the obverse, designed by sculptor John Flanagan back in 1932. The reverse displays the familiar American bald eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. The P mint mark, barely noticeable to the untrained eye, sits just behind Washington's ponytail, indicating this quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Everything about it screams ordinary, everyday pocket change. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, and this is crucial information that separates people who spend quarters from people who profit from them. The United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 1988. The Philadelphia facility alone struck over 800 million Washington quarters that year. With those kinds of production numbers, you'd think every single one would be common as dirt, worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more. And you'd be right about 99.99% of them. What makes certain 1988 P quarters worth astronomical sums comes down to a combination of factors that most people never consider when they glance at their change. First, and this cannot be overstated, condition is absolutely everything in coin collecting. When numismatists talk about condition, they're not just talking about whether a coin is shiny or dull. They're examining every microscopic detail with jewelers' loupes and microscopes, looking for the slightest imperfections, the tiniest scratches, the most minimal signs of wear. The grading scale for coins runs from poor 1 all the way up to perfect 70, and each single point on that scale can mean thousands of dollars in value difference. A circulated 1988 P quarter that you find in your pocket change, one that's been handled, spent, dropped, and circulated through commerce, might grade somewhere between good 4 and extremely fine 45. These coins are worth face value, maybe $1 or $2 to a collector who needs one to fill a hole in an album. Nothing special, nothing life-changing. But when we talk about a 1988 P Washington quarter worth $91,000, we're talking about something entirely different. We're talking about a coin in what collectors call gem uncirculated condition, graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. These are coins that were never released into circulation, never touched by human hands after being struck, never exposed to the elements that cause wear and tear. These are coins that somehow escaped the mint in absolutely perfect condition and were immediately preserved by someone who recognized their potential value. Think about what had to happen for such a coin to exist. In 1988, someone working at or connected to the Philadelphia Mint would have needed to obtain this quarter directly from the production line before it was mixed with millions of others and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. Or perhaps a coin dealer received fresh mint rolls and carefully examined each coin, setting aside the most pristine examples. Or maybe a collector purchased uncirculated mint sets that year and stored them properly for decades. Every step of that journey matters because one moment of carelessness, one fingerprint, one tiny ding from contact with another coin, and the grade drops, sometimes dramatically. The difference between an MS66 and an MS67 1988 P quarter might be invisible to your naked eye, but to professional graders examining the coin under magnification, it's the difference between a lovely uncirculated coin worth maybe a few $100s and a superb gem worth tens of thousands. And if we're talking about an MS68, which represents essentially perfect preservation from the moment of striking, we're entering truly rare territory. Out of those 800 million quarters struck in Philadelphia in 1988, perhaps only a handful exist in MS68 condition today. Now, you might be wondering what exactly graders are looking for when they examine these coins. Let's talk about that because understanding this knowledge could help you spot valuable coins yourself. When a professional numismatist examines a Washington quarter, they're first checking the strike quality. Was the coin struck with full force, bringing up every detail of the design? Look at Washington's hair on the obverse. Can you see individual strands clearly defined? Examine the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Are they sharp and distinct, or are they weak and mushy? A coin with a weak strike will never achieve the highest grades, no matter how well preserved it is. Next, they're examining the surfaces under bright light and magnification, looking for what they call bag marks. These are tiny nicks and scratches that occur when freshly minted coins are dumped into large canvas bags for storage and transportation. Coins bang against each other, creating contact marks. Even uncirculated coins often have these marks because they occurred at the mint before the coins ever entered circulation. A coin with no bag marks visible even under magnification is extraordinarily rare. They're also checking for luster, that cartwheel effect you see when you rotate a mint state coin under a light. Original mint luster is created by the flow lines from the striking process, and it's impossible to restore or fake once a coin has been cleaned or circulated. An MS-67 or MS-68 coin will have vibrant, undisturbed luster that seems to glow with life. It's something you can feel in your gut when you see it, that sense of perfection that makes you understand why someone would pay serious money for what is essentially perfect preservation. Color also matters, particularly for coins struck in copper-nickel-clad composition like quarters made after 1964. The ideal is original bright white surfaces without any toning, spotting, or discoloration. However, some light, attractive toning can actually add value if it's natural and aesthetically pleasing. What collectors want to avoid is dark toning, splotchy discoloration, or any signs of environmental damage or chemical exposure. But here's something that really separates knowledgeable collectors from casual enthusiasts. The 1988 P Washington quarter has several known varieties and errors that can multiply value even further. Variety collecting focuses on minute differences in how the dies were prepared or how the coin was struck. For instance, some 1988 P quarters show double die characteristics on the date or the lettering. A dramatic double die where you can clearly see doubling of the numbers or letters even without magnification on a high-grade coin could push values into six figures. Die cracks are another feature that variety collectors pursue. As the steel dies that strike coins are used repeatedly, they develop cracks that transfer to the coins as raised lines. Some die cracks are common and considered minor curiosities, but dramatic die cracks, or what collectors call cuds, where a piece of the die actually breaks away leaving a blank raised area on the coin, can be quite valuable on modern quarters. Off-center strikes represent another error category. These occur when the blank planchet isn't perfectly centered between the dies when struck, resulting in part of the design being missing and part of the blank edge visible. A dramatically off-center 1988 P quarter, struck perhaps 20 or 30% off-center but still showing the date and mint mark, could be worth hundreds or thousands depending on the degree of error and the overall condition. Wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable. Imagine if a dime planchet somehow ended up in the quarter press and was struck with quarter dies, or a quarter struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. These are incredibly rare mistakes that can be worth enormous sums to error coin collectors. The human element in all of this cannot be ignored. Behind every valuable coin is a story of preservation and care spanning decades. Someone in 1988 had to recognize that this particular quarter was special enough to protect. They had to resist the temptation to spend it during tough financial times. They had to store it properly in a climate-controlled environment, protected from moisture and handling. They had to keep it safe through moves, life changes, economic ups and downs. That's a profound level of commitment to preserving something that most people would literally throw away. And this is why coins like the 1988 P Washington quarter in superb gem condition are so rare and valuable. It's not just about age. Quarters from the 1930s and 1940s are older, but many exist in high grade because collectors were actively saving them during that era when coin collecting was a popular American hobby. By 1988, the hobby had declined from its peak, fewer people were setting aside modern coins, and most quarters went straight into circulation to be spent and worn down. That makes the survivors, the coins that somehow avoided circulation and remained perfect, incredibly scarce. Market forces also play a crucial role in determining value. The coin collecting market, like any market, is driven by supply and demand. There's a relatively small supply of truly gem-grade 1988 P quarters. But demand from collectors who want to assemble complete date sets of Washington quarters in high grade is strong. Wealthy collectors compete for the best examples, driving prices higher. Registry set collecting, where collectors compete to assemble the finest graded sets and are ranked on the PCGS or NGC websites, has intensified competition for top-grade modern coins. When auction houses offer a truly exceptional 1988 P quarter graded MS68, it might attract bidders from around the world. I've seen auctions where two determined collectors drive the price of a single coin far beyond previous records simply because both must have it for their collections. That's how a quarter with a melt value of perhaps 6 or 7 cents and a face value of 25 cents can sell for $91,000. It's not about the metal or the denomination. It's about rarity, condition, and the passionate pursuit of perfection by collectors who have the means to pay for it. Now let me shift gears and talk about something that could have even more immediate relevance to your life right now, because while you probably don't have a perfect 1988 P quarter sitting around, you very well might have dimes from the 1970s in your possession. And that brings us to the second coin we need to discuss in detail, a coin that might be even more accessible to the average person sorting through their change, the 1974 Roosevelt dime. Before I dive into the specifics of why certain 1974 dimes are valued at $166,000, let me give you some context about Roosevelt dimes in general. The Roosevelt dime was introduced in 1946, shortly after the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to honor his legacy and his association with the March of Dimes fundraising campaign that fought polio. The obverse features Roosevelt's profile facing left, designed by chief engraver John R. Sinek. The reverse shows a torch symbolizing liberty flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence. From 1946 through 1964, Roosevelt dimes were struck in 90% silver composition, making them inherently valuable for their precious metal content. But in 1965, as silver prices rose and the government needed to reduce costs, the composition changed to copper-nickel clad, the same composition used today. By 1974, when our featured dime was struck, all dimes being produced were clad coins with a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. At face value, a 1974 dime contains about 3 cents worth of base metal. Nothing special, nothing precious. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 470 million dimes in 1974. The Denver Mint added another 570 million. We're talking about more than 1 billion dimes produced in a single year. You've probably handled hundreds of 1,974 dimes in your lifetime without giving them a second glance. And you were right to spend 99.99% of them because most 1974 dimes are worth exactly 10 cents. But hidden among those billion dimes are specimens that represent the absolute pinnacle of preservation and quality. Coins that survived nearly 50 years without a single mark, without any wear, without even being touched by human skin after leaving the mint. And these coins, when graded MS68 by professional services, command prices that seem absolutely insane until you understand the incredible rarity they represent. Think about the mathematics of rarity for a moment. Out of over 1 billion dimes produced in 1974, how many do you think still exist in absolutely perfect condition today? The answer is staggering in its scarcity. Perhaps a dozen, maybe 2 dozen at most. The population reports from PCGS and NGC, the two major grading services, show that MS68 examples of 1974 dimes are extraordinarily rare, with only a handful ever certified at that grade level. And coins graded MS69? Virtually non-existent. This is rarity on a level that rivals classic rare coins from the 1800s, except these coins were made during the lifetime of people who are still alive today. What happened to all those other dimes? They entered circulation immediately. They were spent at grocery stores, vending machines, parking meters, and laundromats. They were dropped on sidewalks, thrown in fountains, left as tips, and stuffed in piggy banks. Each interaction left microscopic damage. Fingers touching the surface deposited oils that caused spotting. Coins rubbing against each other in pockets and cash registers created bag marks and contact points. Environmental exposure caused toning and corrosion. Within months of being struck, the vast majority of 1974 dimes showed visible wear and would never grade above MS63 or MS64 even if someone decided to have them professionally graded. The dimes that survived in high grade did so through very specific circumstances. Some were purchased in original mint sets that year by collectors who stored them properly and never opened the packaging. Others might have been part of original wrapped bankrolls that a dealer or collector purchased directly and examined, setting aside the finest examples. Still others might have been pulled from circulation very early by someone who noticed they looked particularly nice and decided to save them before they could be damaged. Each path required intervention, care, and more than a little luck. Let me tell you what makes a 1974 dime worth $166,000, because the details matter tremendously. First, we're talking about flawless strike quality. When you examine Roosevelt's profile on the obverse under magnification, every single hair detail should be razor sharp. The letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust should be perfectly formed with no weakness or doubling. The date digits should be crisp and complete. On the reverse, the torch should show complete detail in the flame and handle, and the bands on both the olive and oak branches should be fully struck and visible. Many 1974 dimes, even uncirculated ones, show weakness in the torch details or the branch bands because the dies were wearing down or the strike pressure wasn't optimal. A coin with full torch details and complete branch bands is already scarcer than you might imagine. Second, the surfaces must be absolutely pristine. We're talking about zero bag marks visible even under 10 power magnification. No contact points. No escouves. No hairlines from mishandling or improper storage. The copper core of clad dimes is softer than you'd think, and it's incredibly easy to mark these coins. A truly mark-free 1974 dime is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a football field. Professional graders examine every square millimeter of the coin's surface, front and back, looking for any imperfection that would prevent it from achieving the highest grades. Third, the luster must be completely original and undisturbed. Mint state dimes have a satiny luster that comes from the striking process, and this luster should be vibrant and even across the entire surface. Any attempt to clean the coin, even gentle wiping with a soft cloth, will disturb this luster and immediately disqualify it from gem grades. The coin must look exactly as it did the moment it left the coining press in 1974, with no artificial enhancement or alteration of any kind. Fourth, the color and toning must be acceptable. Ideally, a high-grade 1974 dime will have bright, original white surfaces with no discoloration. However, light attractive toning in shades of gold, blue, or rose can be acceptable if it's natural and aesthetically pleasing. What kills value is dark toning, carbon spots, milk spots, or any signs of corrosion or environmental damage. Copper-nickel-clad coins are particularly susceptible to developing spots over time if stored in humid conditions or in holders that aren't chemically inert. A spot-free example after nearly 50 years is remarkably difficult to find. Now, here's something that most people don't realize about modern coin grading. The difference between MS67 and MS68 is so subtle that even experienced collectors often can't distinguish between them without professional authentication. An MS67 1974 dime might be worth $5,000. An MS68 example might bring $166,000. That's more than 30 times the value for what might appear to be an identical coin to the naked eye. This is why professional third-party grading by PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential for high-value modern coins. Without that authentication and grading, you simply cannot realize full market value because buyers need the assurance that they're getting what they're paying for. The grading services use teams of expert numismatists who examine coins under controlled lighting conditions with high-powered magnification. They compare each coin against extensive photo archives of previously graded examples. They assess strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and eye appeal. Multiple graders review each coin independently, and if there's disagreement, the coin may be reviewed by senior graders. Only when consensus is reached does a coin receive its final grade, and that grade is guaranteed by the service. The coin is then sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number that can be verified in online databases. For modern coins like the 1974 dime, grading standards are actually stricter than for older coins. This seems counterintuitive until you understand the reasoning. With coins from the 1700s or 1800s, graders make allowances for the limitations of early minting technology and the fact that virtually all examples show some degree of wear or imperfection. But coins from the 1970s were produced with modern equipment capable of striking nearly perfect coins, so graders expect higher standards. Additionally, because modern coins were produced in such vast quantities, graders know that truly perfect examples must exist somewhere, so they're less willing to grade borderline coins at the highest levels. This makes achieving MS68 on a 1974 dime extraordinarily difficult. Variety and error coins add another dimension to 1974 dime collecting. While the standard 1974 dime is already valuable in top grades, certain varieties can multiply that value significantly. Double die varieties, where elements of the design show clear doubling, are particularly sought after. Some 1974 dimes show doubling on the date, on Liberty, or on the reverse inscriptions. The degree of doubling varies from very minor, visible only under magnification, to dramatic examples where the doubling is obvious to the naked eye. A dramatically doubled 1974 dime in high grade could potentially be worth even more than standard examples because you're combining rarity of variety with rarity of condition. Repunched mint marks are another category that specialists collect. These occur when the mint mark punch was applied to the die more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance to the mint mark. For 1974, you'd be looking at this on Denver mint dimes, since Philadelphia dimes from that era didn't carry a mint mark. A clear repunched D on a high-grade 1974 D dime adds collector interest and value. Off-center strikes, as with quarters, can be valuable on dimes as well. A 1974 dime struck 10 to 15% off-center, showing part of the blank planchet with the date still visible, would be worth hundreds of dollars even in circulated condition. In mint state, such an error could bring thousands. Dramatically off-center strikes, 30 to 50% off-center, are major errors worth significant premiums. Broad strike errors occur when the collar that normally contains the coin during striking is missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond the normal diameter. A 1974 dime with a broad strike error will be noticeably larger than a normal dime and won't have the reeded edge. These are scarce and collectible, especially in higher grades. Clipped planchet errors, where part of the blank was missing before striking, creating a coin with a curved clip or straight clip, are also collectible varieties. Perhaps most valuable of all would be wrong planchet errors. Imagine a 1974 dime struck on a quarter planchet, or on a cent planchet, or even on a foreign coin blank that somehow ended up in the mint. These spectacular errors can be worth tens of thousands of dollars because they're typically unique or nearly so. Only a tiny handful might exist for any given year and denomination combination. But let's return to the standard 1974 dime in MS68 grade, because that's what we're really discussing when we talk about a dime worth $166,000. What drives this value is the intersection of several market forces. First, there's the registry set phenomenon I mentioned earlier. PCGS and NGC maintain online registries where collectors can register their sets and compete for the finest overall collection in various categories. Collectors building finest known Roosevelt dime sets need the highest graded example of each date, and they're willing to pay substantial premiums to obtain them. When 2 or 3 wealthy collectors are competing for the same MS68 1974 dime, prices can escalate quickly at auction. Second, there's the investment aspect. Some buyers view ultra-high-grade modern coins as investment vehicles. They've watched as coins that were worth a few $100s 20 years ago now sell for 6 figures. They're betting that continued population growth, increased wealth globally, and continued scarcity of top-grade examples will drive prices even higher in the future. Whether this investment thesis proves correct remains to be seen, but it's definitely influencing current market prices. Third, there's the appeal of owning something truly rare that most people don't even know exists. Telling someone you own a rare coin from 1794 is impressive, but it's not surprising. Everyone knows old coins can be valuable. But telling someone you own a dime from 1974 worth more than a house, that's genuinely shocking and fascinating. There's a kind of collector who loves having that story to tell, who enjoys the irony of tremendous value hiding in plain sight. Understanding the market for these coins requires understanding how they're bought and sold. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and legend handle the most valuable examples, promoting them to their client lists and conducting live auctions where serious bidders compete. Private treaty sales between dealers and collectors account for many high-end transactions, conducted quietly without public price disclosure. Online platforms like eBay and dealer websites handle lower-grade material, though occasionally surprising coins appear there from sellers who don't fully understand what they have. Price guides like the Red Book provide general values, but for ultra-high-grade modern coins, the guides often lag behind actual market prices. Auction records are the best indicator of current market value. When an MS-68 1974 dime sells for $166,000 at a major auction, that becomes the comp that future sales are measured against. If another MS-68 example appears at auction 6 months later and brings $180,000, the trend is upward. If it brings $140,000, the trend might be softening. The market is dynamic and can shift based on economic conditions, collector sentiment, and the availability of fresh material. For those of you watching who are now wondering whether you might have valuable coins, let me give you practical advice. Start by sorting through any coin collections inherited from parents or grandparents. Look for coins in original mint packaging that has never been opened. Check coin albums and folders for dates that might have been set aside in high grade. Examine any coins stored in individual protective holders, as someone thought those worthy of protection. For loose change, you're looking for coins that appear uncirculated, meaning they show no signs of wear from handling. The surfaces should be bright and lustrous, not dull or worn. Details should be sharp, not soft or rounded from circulation. If you find coins that meet these criteria, have them examined by a reputable coin dealer or consider submitting them for professional grading if they appear exceptional. Be realistic about condition, though. Most coins people think are uncirculated actually grade somewhere in the MS-60 to MS-63 range, which commands minimal premiums over face value for modern dates. Truly gem coins, MS-65 and up, are immediately obvious to experienced eyes because they look perfect. If you're not sure, get multiple opinions. Attend a local coin club meeting where experienced collectors can examine your finds. Most collectors are happy to help newcomers and share their knowledge. Avoid common pitfalls. Never clean coins, as this destroys value. Don't handle coins with bare fingers. Use cotton gloves or hold them by the edges. Store valuable coins in proper holders designed for coin storage, not in plastic bags or paper envelopes that can cause damage. Don't trust online price estimates without understanding the grading requirements. A website might list a 1974 dime at $166,000, but that's for MS-68 grade, not for the circulated example you found in your pocket. Education is your most valuable tool. Learn grading standards by studying professionally graded coins at coin shows and shops. Read reference books about the series you're interested in. Join online forums where collectors discuss varieties and share knowledge. The more you learn, the better equipped you'll be to spot valuable coins and avoid costly mistakes. The stories behind these valuable coins remind us that treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. That 1988 P. Washington quarter worth $91,000 looks identical to the one you got in change at the convenience store yesterday. That 1974 dime valued at $166,000 could be sitting in a jar on your dresser right now, mixed with hundreds of other dimes you've accumulated over the years. The difference isn't in what the coins are, but in the miraculous preservation that allowed a tiny number of examples to survive in absolute perfection. These coins represent more than just monetary value. They're tangible connections to specific moments in American history, artifacts of the minting process, and testaments to the care and foresight of collectors who recognized and preserved them. They remind us to look more carefully at the everyday objects we take for granted, because sometimes extraordinary value hides in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it and fortunate enough to find it.